There for a while, my kids at a certain age, particularly my middle daughter, when we would go to a restaurant and I wasn't paying attention, they'd be like, "What can we get, Dad?" And I'd say something like, "Oh, whatever you want. You can have whatever you want." She'd always be like, "Well, then I'll have a pony." Ah, dang it, you little rat. Turning my own words against me. I'm either going to be super embarrassed in front of these Burger King employees or I'm going to have to get you a pony. Ultimately, I decided not to get her a pony as I felt like what she was doing was a technicality and I lacked the money for a pony or the real estate for a pony, but it was clever and I got to give her that. It's a risky thing saying that you can have whatever you want phrase, but it's not a mistake that just I have made. I mean, heck, kings in ages past have overstated what other people can have, making big grand ovations about the massive depths of their resources and how eager they are to share it. And in Esther chapter 5, after Esther comes in and tames the beast and receives an audience with a king who hasn't asked for her for quite some time, the king opens with just such a warm invitation, which is awesome because Esther does actually need something from him. But as we talked about yesterday, Esther is resisting the impulse to Kool-Aid man the situation and instead doing this shrewd, coy, cunning, almost playful teasing out of what it is that she's actually here to request. And we get the impression that Xerxes is kind of having fun with this. Here's how it goes. I'm going to go back and just read from the beginning of Esther chapter 5. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her, and he held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Now here's the new material that we haven't looked at yet, Esther 5:3. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." Surely he couldn't have meant that. But as we'll talk about more here in a minute or two, that's a saying that kings would say back in the day. The passage continues, verse 4. "If it pleases the king," replied Esther, "let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." "Bring Haman at once," the king said, "so that we may do what Esther asks." So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. Well, it seems like everybody's having a really good time here. And I love the way that Xerxes is not only in a good enough mood to receive Queen Esther, but he's also in a good enough mood to be like, yeah, let me check my watch. You know what? Hey, Haman, cancel all of the rest of my appointments for the day. We're going to do a surprise banquet with the queen. I'm so glad you came in here and said that would be wonderful. Let's do it right now. I mean, he's in great spirits. Think about what happens when you're busy and you get interrupted at work. How often are you like, you know what? Yeah, let's just blow off the rest of the day. Let's do it. That sounds wonderful. You know that the few times that you are able to do that, it means that you are in a great headspace. Well, that's what's happening here. And isn't it interesting that the king's like, you can have anything up to half of the kingdom. What does Esther ask for? Let's get dinner together. Oh, do you just want to hang out with me and just like be together as husband and wife or whatever? I mean, wonderful. Yes, of course. Let's do it. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, why do I say that? Hopefully I'm always being honest with you. It's just, that's a throwaway phrase, whatever. Here is how I feel about it. I really like the way Xerxes comes off in this moment. And surely I am reading my modern sensibilities into this, and I'm reading my own marriage and love with Camilla into this, but I adore it when my wife comes to me and is like, you know what I would love to do? What? I'd like to just hang out with you for the rest of the day. Really? Great. Yeah, I would like that too. How about I just don't work anymore today? Let's go hang out. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? She's my favorite person that I've ever met, ever. And so that is always going to sound like a breath of fresh air to me. And even if I am reading modern stuff and my own experiences back onto this, I just like this little moment. I also think it's really interesting that there's an echo of this passage that maybe sprung right to mind for you at another banquet in another part of the Bible. I am thinking specifically of Matthew, it's in the middle, 14, 15. No, it can't be 15. It is 14? Yeah, it is 14. Matthew 14, where Herod is having a banquet, and the subject of John the Baptist comes up at this banquet. You remember this one? And remember, Herod, this would be Herod Antipas, so Herod the Great's kid. He married one of his brother's wives. This is weird, incestuous. I mean, the Herod family are they're a complete mess. And so there's this lady, Herodias, and they shouldn't be married. So John the Baptist was calling out that weird marriage. Herod didn't like it, and he put John the Baptist in prison because they didn't have a First Amendment back then. And then at this banquet of Herod's in Matthew chapter 14, in a sequence that kind of echoes, I think maybe even intentionally echoes this stuff from Esther, Herod, an oppressor of the Jews, his wife's daughter does a sexy dance for everybody, and Herod really super likes it. And he promised her anything she wants, up to half the kingdom. That is going to be here, verse 6. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for them and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. I'm thinking of a different passage. Maybe it's the Mark version? Hang on a second. I'm sure he says up to half the kingdom. Hang on. Mark 6. Yep, here it is. Finally, the opportune time came. This is Mark 6:21. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. See how much that sounds like Esther? I don't think that's probably an accident. It sounds like Esther 1. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. This is what Xerxes wanted Vashti to do, but she refused. The king said to the girl, "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you." And he promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." And then this girl says she went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for?" And the mom says, "The head of John the Baptist." And then you'll recall Herod is kind of embarrassed at his party where he had the sexy dancing. And he's like, I didn't think you were going to, that's not really politically good for me, but I guess I don't want to look dumb at my party. Okay, I'll cut off his head. Dang it. And of course, therein we get another echo of Esther, where the supposedly powerful king is exposed for being an easily manipulated clown, except it's sort of like a reimagined history with this account in Matthew and Mark of what happened with the death of John the Baptist. It's almost like, what if Xerxes had gotten his way, sort of a reimagining of Esther. I don't think those echoes are accidental, but if you've hung out with me for any amount of time here, you know that I'm usually biased in the direction of biblical cohesiveness and intentionality on the parts of the biblical inspired authors to try to coordinate signals and draw out themes and motifs from other part of the Bible. Of course, you can read into that whatever you want. But to put it simply, in Herod's banquet, what you've got is a crazy, influenceable king who says to a young, attractive lady, "I'll give you whatever you want, up to half my kingdom." And she's like, "Kill me some Jews," one in particular. In Esther's situation, you've got a highly influenceable king who's like, "Yeah, what do you want? Up to half the kingdom." And Esther is essentially going to answer that question by lobbying for don't kill any Jews. We're going to have to hit pause there because of time. We're only about halfway through this exchange between Esther and Xerxes. But the two things that I immediately see here is, one, I like this moment between the two of them. And two, I do think that there are echoes and parallels between what's going on here and what we see covered in Herod's banquet account that results in the death of John the Baptist in the New Testament. We'll go ahead and round out the rest of their exchange next time around. All right, I'm Matt. This is a 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.